Hey everyone, I want to welcome you to HuttCast. HuttCast is a pragmatic approach to several things that happen in life and happen around us. So tune in, check us out. If you like us, give us a thumbs up to HuttCast. Okay, people, I'm going to try and break this into 3 segments for you. 3 10-minute segments. We're going to make this a half-hour show. Segment 1 is going to be about who I am. First show, kind of what we do. You have to know that the guy talking to you has some life experiences. Second segment is going to be about what we can do about things. What do we see as an action? And then the third segment is going to be about what can you do about it. Stay tuned. Going to have a good show today. Okay, segment 1, a little introduction of myself. We call our show the HuttCast. It seemed to make sense. Everybody's got a podcast. Everybody's got something they're doing. What is different about mine? You know what? You'll have to be the judge of that. What I'm trying to do here is just give you an introduction of what myself is and what is going on with I see in today's world. Born in Kansas. So we're a Kansas native. Went to Minneapolis after that, South Minneapolis, and grew up there for a little bit. After South Minneapolis, kind of went to the Anoka area. So in Anoka, we probably spent, 4 or 5 years of my childhood there. Great city, awesome city to be in. And then we moved out to St. Francis. Now, St. Francis, when I moved out there were, tractors driving down the street. There were combines picking corn and hay and everything you could possibly think of. That's what St. Francis was in my day. Now, today, it's kind of a little bustling mecca. Now, St. Francis has a whole lot of amenities. And the biggest thing in St. Francis now is when they got their McDonald's, they were on the map. I talked to all my buddies. They say, hey, we got a McDonald's now. I says, wow, there's that many people? My senior class was 1,120 some people. And to big cities, that's probably like Tuesday for you, but for the rest of us, 1,100 people was a ton of people. And all these guys were, they're farmers, they're latchkey kids, they were pretty much everything that you could possibly think of in one mixing bowl. That's what St. Francis was to us. Back in our day, St. Francis had a lot of things to offer their kids. They had machine shop. Awesome shop. We had home ec. You don't see home ec anymore. Home ec is one of those things where, hey, you want home ec? You throw something in the microwave and that's your home ec. And of course we had all the industrial arts. We had all the common sense class. We didn't have common, core math. We actually did it the old way. So that should date myself a little bit into what's going on. From St. Francis, I married my wife of 34 years, and we settled down in a city just south of St. Francis by about 25 miles. We had 2 boys. We have 2 boys, and they're quite the men. So I'm proud of my kids that me and the wife have raised. And just get you on page, they are both graduates of college. They have all their education from K through 12, and that's who my kids are. We didn't give them much time to not be kids, but we did. So they had things to do, and they knew they had the job to do. So their job when they were kids was do your job and do your school. My education. So during my dealership days, I had done a lot of work with General Motors. I did a lot of their remote trainings, or the remote sessions. During my remote trainings, while I was working at GM in Coon Rapids, I had a opportunity to take continuing education, which would be computer hardware C&E. And that was a class offered from KSU and Penn State to do computer hardware C&E engineering. So I took one of those classes as well. back then, it wasn't online. It was all hard call it in and do what you do. You punch numbers and you take the test, and yeah, it was a whole lot more clumsy than it is today. Today I would love to do what you guys do today. So at that, my education and my work history, pretty much GM. After I left the GM world, I went into independent. I was a entrepreneur. I started my own shop, did my own things, and during my own shop, I was able to learn a lot of things. I talked to a lot of people. I got a lot of education just by listening to the people that came into my facility. I learned a lot from these guys. And the most important thing I can tell you what I learned is that you got to take a second and listen. Sometimes you get fast and you get in a hurry and you're just like, do I really want to listen to this guy? But you got to pump those brakes and say, hey, what is he telling me? He might not know what I'm talking about, or he might not know what the car world is. It's because I'm in the car world. And he just pumps the brakes for me, and I says, okay, now I get it. It makes sense. So that is kind of my professional career, and I'm still in business. I still do a lot of cars. We build a lot of hot rods. We do a lot of R&E, which is reverse engineering of how things work in the factory world and try to apply them to a hot rod world. And then we do a lot of forward engineering to try and make these things work that you have to make work. So no one's really made a method of how to make this work. So you're the guy. And you don't say no to your clients. You say, okay, when can I get this done, and can I do it right? So as far as a professional career, hey, I get it. There's a lot of things out there that a lot of people have interest in. We run more than just one or two businesses. We have a towing company that we also operate. We also operate a weapons store. So we have quite intimate knowledge in the federal ATF side of things. We do a lot of we're starting our new podcast, so this is why you're here today. And sometimes you just gotta figure out what you got to do, and you do it. So that's some of our work ethic. Again, you get it done. Here's a big one: my civic duties. I'm kind of a firm believer in our system. Our system is designed with its checks and balances. It's designed with our Dems and our Rebs. It's designed with our independent parties. It's been designed and laid out for us for years. Now, that being said, with all the stuff that's going on, I've always taken a personal interest in my civic duties as an individual. So it's not about sides. It's about common sense for me. So in 2016, I ran for mayor of a city in 45 minutes south of St. Francis. I also ran for city council in that same city. I also serve another city as a member of an economic development authority, EDA-HRA, which is Housing Redevelopment Authority. So with those two, I have been quite active in politics and locally of me. I have a lot of senator friends. I have a lot of House and Republican and Democratic friends. So these guys are good guys. I listen to them a lot. So that's my civic duties of things, why I get involved with these people. Now a word from our sponsors. Today's sponsor in part by Excel Roofing. Excel Roofing, they do it all. Roofs, siding, framing. You need a house? Give Excel a call. I've used these guys personally in the past, have a professional crew. They're conscious of your job, and they want to produce the finest quality of craftsmanship available. Excel Roofing, 763-712-0757. Again, 763-712-0757. Excel Roofing, Dayton, Minnesota. Okay, now we're on to segment 2. Segment 2, why I started HuttCast. Well, we can just start out with this world needs a reset. This world that we live in, sometimes you want to look through the crap, but you're seeing this surreal look of things. You see this. What are they thinking of when they do this kind of stuff? What's going on in their mind that makes them think that it's okay to do what they do? So, does the world need to reset? I believe it does. I believe that we need to come back and we need to pay attention to certain things, because sometimes you can't lose sight of somebody else's perspective, and a lot of people do that. So, world needs a reset, yes. Next thing is common sense. Now, I don't want to quote Dr. Phil all the time, but I do watch the guy quite a bit, and he's kind of a pseudo hero to me, and I really like what he says, and he makes sense to a lot of people's situations. A good, smart guy, so maybe I could learn something from him. And he says all the time, and I quote, "Common sense ain't common enough." Well, sometimes you get this symmetry of when people say something, it's just the right thing. Well, when he says that, sometimes it hits home pretty hard. And you got to stop and think, what's not common sense about that? But, you talk to them and it's common sense, and you're going, holy crap, this guy's right on the button. So, common sense ain't common enough. Next is, has this world lost their mind? Can they really? And I'm not just talking about the Rebs and Dems. I'm talking about everything. How many people out there listening can go to work? They can go to a store. They can watch the news, and they can say, "Have these people lost their goddamn mind?" Because am I the only person saying this? I don't believe that I am. And maybe someone looks at me and says, "Have I lost my goddamn mind?" Well, maybe so. But if you don't get together and you don't talk about who's losing their mind and why, you do get this great divide going on. You get the one side hating the other side, don't even know why, but they know enough to, I don't want to talk to the other side because I think crazy, and they need psychological help, but they won't take the time to talk to them. And that's what kind of sets me aside from, okay, have you lost your mind? And at what point do you not talk to the people who are thinking you lost your mind, or you're thinking they lost their mind, but they don't talk to you? So that's what I mean by, have they really lost their mind? So again, everybody out there knows, you got that person, you got that guy at work, you got that guy at the store who's in front of you, who didn't get what he wanted to get, and all of a sudden he's lost a doggone mind, and there you are sitting behind him thinking, do I say something? Do I just cut the guy at the knees, push him over and say, "Have you lost your goddamn mind?" while he's looking on the ground at you? Or maybe he just gets up, kicks your butt. I don't know. But sometimes you just got to wonder. So that's what I mean by, have they lost their mind? And we all have those people out there. We all know it. Moving on. I'm the kind of guy who likes to look at both sides of the fence. I mean, I'm not arrogant enough to think that my way is the right way every time, but I've grown up with a different set of morals and a different code than today's kids. Today's kids being the millennials, today's kids being the latchkey kids of today. And now we're spouting a new generation of kids who are going to be homeschool kids. What are we going to call them? The HK kids? What do we call these kids now? Because we ain't going to see the effect of this for another 5 to 10 years with this pandemic stuff going on. Pandemic, homeschooling, the Great Divide. You've got the Justice for George guys running around. You got the BLM guys running around. You got all these guys doing their event, and then you got a city, a government, a state being shut down by a certain individual because he wants to do it for the better of the good. And I get that. And you see these people with this sickness, and you're going like, oh crap! You hope you don't get it, but you can't stop living. Somewhere, you just got to go, Okay. What did we do last year? So did we shut the state down last year because we had the flu? We have never shut down a country or a government or a city or a livelihood because of a pandemic. And we've had them before. We've had pandemics before. There's no doubt about it. The swine flu was one of them. And you just gotta wonder, okay, what are they saying? What are they seeing that I don't see? And you talk to a lot of doctors. I got doctor friends. Hey, what are you seeing? Oh, it's real no matter what. It's real. And they try to tell you, oh, it's real. I was never doubting it was real. But how can you, as an individual, watching any news outlet, wherever you get your news, and say, yeah, that's really real? And can you trust that it's real? I don't know. I have a lot of trust issues when I'm hearing two sides of the story constantly, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. So, a friend of mine always said, another car guy over in the Nook area, he'd always stop and say, I like to say, and the rest of the story goes like this. Well, I use that a lot. So if anybody knows me in my professional world, I just don't hear the information and start spewing it and running with it. I kind of like to go, and the rest of the story goes like this. I really do like to look at both sides of that fence. What are the facts? What can we believe in? How can we believe in it? And how do we fix it? How do we get past this point? Okay, moving on. In my segments, I do hope to get across to everybody who's listening. First of all, I never want to offend. I want to educate. I want to entertain. I want to be informative. And we'll soon be setting up a website for people to give feedback, to chime in and say, hey, yeah, I heard this, and you're off your rocker, or you're spot on. I'm sure I'll hear both of it. The wife, she says, are you sure you want to do a podcast? And I went, well, it's kind of part of civic duty again. And I'm kind of big in the civic world. So I will do my best to entertain. I will do my best to educate and inform everyone listening to the show. And try and put a sense of common sense back in this crazy times we live in. So there is one of the reasons why I have started the HuttCast. Again, I ran out of things to do, so it was either make it some other kind of goofy name or just, that's it. It's HuttCast. So good, better, and different. That's what I got. What else do I got to add? I think that's about it for this segment. I'll do my editing and I'll get this thing cleaned up. So that ends my segment number 2. Okay, so how do we fix this? We're in our third segment into this. And as I said in the beginning of the show, we're going to have 3 segments. This being the first show, it's a Christmas show. I don't want to be a complete Debbie Downer here. But you're going to want to know, how do we fix this? And personally speaking, I believe the first thing that we should do in how to fix these sides, these torn apart lefts and rights and ins and outs, and we need a little thing called discussion. Now, discussion can happen at many levels, many planes of discussion in this world. We got so many avenues. We've got these podcasts. We've got Facebooks. We've got Twitter. We've got, you name it, we've got it. But a lot of people are forgetting, when you go out and you start a Facebook conversation, let's say, and they're your neighbors, that they're somewhere in the world, you know that their same people have different opinions, and then people start taking pot shots at everybody. Now, it's got to be human nature for when you start taking pot shots at people because they don't align with your agreement or your agenda, and then the insults roll out. And then you got these the left's beating up the right's beating up the, and you got to remember that these people are your neighbors. But you can't be arrogant enough to think that only yours is going to be right. So if you get beat in a conversation and you start getting mean, that means you really got beat and you should stop. So how do you fix this? You have discussions. You have grown up, pull up the big boy pants and say, hey, why do you think this way? Or vice versa. Maybe they ask you, why do you think this way? And remember to keep your attitude in check and say, well, here's why I think this. Instead of locking and loading and saying, you know what? That sounds like fighting words. Well, there's the diplomacy in politics. You have to stop and listen to the other side and say, what can I do to understand what you're saying? And if it just don't make total sense to you at all, then okay, you agree to disagree and you move along and you got your own side. So listening to somebody is pretty critical. What have their life experiences been that you don't know what they've gone through? They don't know what you've gone through, but yet they want to inject their opinion on yours or yours on theirs. That ain't the time or place for that. Keep your opinion to yourself until you have enough data that you feel comfortable with stating your facts, that here's how you see it, vice versa. Okay. Moving on to, here's another one I like to do. And I don't know where I got it, but it's been around a long time. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them proportionately. Here I am talking to a bunch of people, and I've got maybe a couple thousand ears listening to 1 mouth. And again, I'm trying to always educate. I'm always trying to inform, to make sure that, okay, what I'm giving you is good intel. And again, when the websites get set up, you can chime in and say, hey, segment 3 of episode 4, I kind of see it this way. And I welcome that information because, I'm going to learn something as well. One of the reasons I'm doing this podcast. So for you people out there that just want to take a hard stance and say, it's my way or the highway, well, then you're going to get met with the equal amount of resistance. Because nobody's going to put up with that, and they're going to say, fine, we'll do it your way. But I have to caution you guys, you people that think this way, you might think that, hey, we're going to just lock and load on these people and let them have it. Well, that's just going to end up in a bad way for everybody. More so the people who want the confrontation versus the people who don't want it. Who wants to run around and start a fight everywhere? I don't know, maybe that's your thing. Then you go join the military. Go join whatever you want to join to go kick everybody's ass. But that ain't today's world. Today's world is, why are we doing this? So, listen. Listen is more than you talk. And you just might get something out of life. Because I would sure hope somebody somewhere has got better intel and I can learn from them. Moving forward. Keep an open mind. That's right. Open it up. Open it wide open. And say it to yourself. Maybe they have something that makes sense. I know it's difficult. Human nature says we're going to do it our way. And that's the way we're going to do it. But you have to kind of say, what are they doing? What are they doing in their life that makes sense to them in their world? So open mind is a very critical part of the politics. The two sides understanding somebody else's thing. That open mind is a huge thing for everything. Whether it's politics, whether it's opinions, whether it's anything from car racing to whatever. I bring up the car racing references because, sometimes the NHRA guys, they have a rule, and they have this book of rules. It's a huge book, and there are rules for rules. There's rules about a rule about rule. And in this rule book, you might see tomato, and they see tomato.
both are accurate. And now you have to have some common ground. Say, for instance, I see a grade 8 bolt holding a non-critical piece, and you see a grade 5 bolt holding a non-critical piece. They're both going to work. I suppose the guys who write the rules, you got to do what they say, but they didn't have a rule about grade 5 versus grade 8. You just needed a bolt there. That also is open-minded. That open mind itself will also put you guys together. It'll put your car back on the racetrack. It'll put you to have the rest of the day that's nice, and you didn't waste all that time getting up there and not having nothing to do. Henceforth, the NHRA guys say, look, we got another racer on the track. He gets to be here. We get to collect. He gets to have a good time. So the open-minded thing, kind of a thing for me. And you know what? Sometimes I lose sight of that. I'm going to call my own spot on this. Sometimes I'm guilty of not being open-minded, but sometimes I have to sit and say, you know what, that makes sense. So as I grow and learn, as I get older, I try to pump these brakes and say, yeah, that makes sense. We should probably do that. So in my line of thinking is, you know what, if you got something good, teach me and tell me, but you better be right telling me. Otherwise, you're wasting my time. So, heads up on that, people. Moving along to a big one. This is a real big one now. It's more than just a words in a podcast. It's a life. It's a life thing. It's an event. It's a way of listening. And regardless of what you do, the biggest thing I can tell guys is have some compassion for someone else's experiences. Now, what I mean by that is compassion is the sympathy, their sympathetic pity and concern for the sufferings or the misfortunes of other. So I always try to look at it when someone comes through my door and I got to help them in their situation, and they don't have the means or the want to do the things they need to do, as you know right is, you always try to have the compassion and say, okay, if you choose A, then B could result, and C, I'm not responsible. Well, when you say you're not responsible, you're trying to protect yourself, but you still want to have compassion for their situation. And you lose sight of that. A lot of people do. They just say, hardball, this, that, the other. And I believe we lose a lot of compassion for people because we are such a litigious society. And at every point in time, if someone can do something to take from you as opposed to work for what they want, they'll take it 9 times out of 10. Now, this ain't no bang to all the attorneys out there. That's their job, because there's always got to be that source of people that tell you, hey, that was done wrong or that was done right. But that compassion is a forward-driving motive for people on both sides of things. Now, say, for instance, someone comes in and they don't understand that the compassion of our side, and this ain't me just throwing up against the wall and see what sticks. We see this, and they don't understand what they're asking. So I can only hope that sometimes they have compassion for what we have to do to make their problem go away. And again, it's their problem. I'm only there to help them solve their problem. And they lose some compassion on, hey, this is still my problem, but I'm going to put it on you, and therefore it becomes our problem. Compassion. It's a thing, and that's how you're going to work at solving these issues in today. And this is going to end our segment 3. Again, don't forget to hit the website. When I get it up and loaded, I will give further information on where, what, and how to obtain emails and input and chatter from my podcast or the HuttCast. So feel free to chime in, and certainly I'll go through them and review the emails and report back.
I just want to take a moment today and thank everybody for tuning in and downloading this podcast, i.e. HuttCast, and we'll be having more episodes coming up soon. Thank you very much. This ends episode 1.